Hello everyone. So I'm making an updated video on what I think RDNA 5 or UDNA, whatever they're going to call it, is going to be looking like. Um, and so there's either good news or bad news. Not really 100% sure how to look at it yet because obviously it's still, we're still early on into the, we don't know anything for concrete, you know, evidence or anything like that. Nothing is set in stone, obviously, but it's going to look something like this. So, um, in my last video, the way that this was looked at was kind of if somebody that didn't do more research, the immediately you're going to look at this as 96 CUs, similar to like an XTX, 40 CUs, similar to like a 9070 XT. However, one of my viewers actually notified me that this might be work group processors, so WGPs instead of CUs. That's where this number might have been confused. So instead of 96 CUs, you're actually looking at 100 and here. Sorry, my it's currently 5 in the morning, up a little too late. But, whatever. So 96 times 2, 192. And that is where they're getting the 12,000 shader cores from. That's why I was looking at this, and it was it looked like the mistake they made with the 7900 XTX where they thought it was going to be 12,000 cores, but that's well, it will be what I'm getting from this is that it'll be 96 WGPs or 192 CUs. So that would equal to 12,000 shading units, right? Which would literally be double what the XTX has in terms of, you know, how many cores, right? The number of cores. Which, when you take into account the architectural improvements from the 97 or 7900 XTX to the 9070 XT, you're looking to have like a 6090 type of competitor, if not faster than that. With GDDR7 memory, like this could definitely, we're definitely faster than a 5090. Like there's no questioning that because the 9070 XT is just as fast as a XTX, pretty much. I mean, in gaming, it can't. Well, for my XTX, I'm probably beating an XT in almost every scenario by a decent amount. That's only because I have an unlocked power limit to 500. Well, not unlocked, but my max power limit is 550 watts. So it's like I'm constantly pushing over 3 gigahertz. So like um a lot of reviews that did like 9070 XT benchmarks versus the XTX, they did stock versus stock. So like the XTX would be hitting like 2600 megahertz and the 9070 XT would be pushing like 3000 megahertz. Just because out of the box the 9070 XT pushes much higher frequencies. That's partially because of the node change from 5 nanometers to 4 nanometers. Um, but the 5 nanometer node is still able to push really high clocks as well. It just requires quite a bit more power to do the same thing, which is why the XTX was kind of locked down to that 460 watt to 430 watt to 460 watt depending on what model card you bought. Um, but um, but when you get an XTX and you're able to push it to 3 gigahertz or above, you're pretty much going to beat the 9070 XT in every. Not to mention the memory overclock. It's like the IPC uplift it was good, obviously, because you know they it was able to match XTX performance. However, when you're able to push an XTX to pretty much the limit, or like what some people think what the card should have been, then it definitely widens that margin because the XTX even at 2600 megahertz is already still normally a little bit faster than the XT, non-ray tracing, obviously. It's either, stock versus stock. They're the XTX is a little bit faster, but not by a high margin. But once you, like I said, once you start pushing those clocks up to 3 gigahertz, sometimes 3.1, or even 3.2, but that's more. 3.2 is really difficult to get, and some games don't really agree with that anyway. Some games will run 3.2 all day, some games won't. And then also obviously um um silicon quality plays a role at 3200. Like it starts to kind of be like iffy. If you have really good silicon, you might be able to push 3.2 all day long, no issues. But if you have kind of lower quality, your max might be around 3100 without crashes and this and that. But I'm 95% sure that almost every single XTX on the market can push um, can push 3.1 gigahertz. You know, your undervolt might not be the best, but like if the power limit's unlocked or whatever, it can push 3.1 gigahertz unless you have a terrible quality, unless you have just horrible silicon. But even horrible silicon, you're definitely going to be able to hit 3000, no doubt, like no doubt. Anyways, I kind of went off topic there, but regardless, you're looking at a card. So I think the 9070 XT is like 4000. Let's see, 9070 XT shading. Let's take a gander. Then this would also explain why in my first video it wasn't really making sense, because I was like mid tier, low tier, and like these look like very weak cards, like very weak. And it was like these mid tier and low tier, they didn't even look like they'd compete with the 9070 XT or 9070. So I was like, what is going on here? Like, and if these were work group processors, it would make a whole lot more sense. You're gonna have a damn Titan type of GPU right here that's gonna blow everything we've seen so far out of the water. And then we're gonna have a card that is probably like faster, like in between a 4090 and a 5090 is what I would say. With if this has you know 5120, well, I don't know, 5120 cores. That'll probably be around 4090 performance, maybe a little bit faster depending on IPC uplift. And then 3072, you're probably looking at like 9070 XT, 9070 performance. And then this 12 CU, you're probably looking at like between a 9070 and a 9060 XT. Obviously we'll have to wait and see, but that would kind of balance out right there. So to me, if these specs are accurate, all of these are just going to be converted to workgroup processors, and really it's this. So there's going to be 80 CUs, 48 CUs, 24 CUs. So it's like yeah, and the reason for that, workgroup processors, pretty much one workgroup processor equals two CUs. So um, that's just how I think they made that switch back like a while ago, but at some point the naming got confused, and I think Kepler L2, he made a announcement or whatever with the RDNA 5 specs, and he got confused with CU versus workgroup processor. And honestly, it would make a whole lot more sense if these were workgroup processors, like if AMD is going to come out with a flagship, from my perspective at this point, they're going to try to come out with something that's really going to like compete with a 6090 or something. Now, this might be a $2,000 GPU, I don't know. But I really hope not. But regardless, I'll probably buy it cuz like at this point I wouldn't say I'm an AMD fanboy, don't get me, but I'm an underdog sort of like the, I always like to see an underdog come back and fight. And not that AMD, I mean, AMD is an underdog, but they release great products. Like the XTX is fantastic. The 9070 XT is fantastic. Just because they don't have a, really, them not having a flagship tier is probably, you know, The reason why it works for NVIDIA with like the 5090 is because they already have like consumer trust in terms of their products working and their products being reliable and their products just working as intended, right? Like not having any quirks, this and that. That's the thing with the XTX is it does have a few weird quirks that you got, that every now and again you'll come across and you gotta figure it out. But if you're any sort of technologically inclined, it's like it's literally no issue. It's kind of one of those things where it's like, um, you know, it's not even really an issue, but it's like you'd have to be kind of like a potato when it comes to any sort of technology to be like confused. Because generally, if you're, especially if you're not overclocking, it's like the XTX is just plug and forget. And really that's the same for most AMD GPUs at this point. Like, like there's a couple of things like I had to disable multi-plane overlay or whatever in MPO. Yeah, I had to disable MPO. Not that it what there was also an issue on NVIDIA with that side, but it just kind of um I don't know. Something about AMD, it kind of feels like Nvidia is a little more. It's like they'll take care of a lot of issues on the driver side so that their users don't necessarily don't have to go and do this and that in order to get their products to work. But whereas AMD, it's like every now and again you'll come across an issue and you don't know what incarnation's going on. And like for me figuring out what was going on with the MPO, it was a the issue with MPO would only happen when I had FreeSync enabled. Um, and when I would disable, but I really wanted to use FreeSync. I was like, I don't want to have to disable FreeSync in order for my PC to work properly, and it really was getting on my damn nerves. Um, so I was doing my research and this and that, and I had heard of MPO before, and I'd actually disabled it before. But it when I was like trying to figure out what was going on, I it just never crossed my mind for some reason. I don't know why, and it honestly gets on my nerves that it took me so long to figure out what was going on. But I tried everything, and then I think I was on Reddit and I was scrolling, and I was like, oh yeah, like it was like when an old memory gets um you know reintroduced into your mind. That like I saw somebody mention NPO and I was like, it was like a light bulb. I was like, I wonder if that is what is going on, with if that's my problem. And my problem was like anytime I would like, for example, let's say I grab this, Microsoft Edge tab or tab, what app or what, well, whatever the fuck, the browser, and I would drag it down. It would like that would cause a giant lag spike or something. And I think so whatever is going on with MPO, I don't know how to fix it. Obviously I'm not an AMD driver dev or anything like that. I don't, but it's tied to memory downclocking. I'm like relatively confident that that is what is causing that problem, because I was starting to realize that anytime it would happen, it was at the same time that my memory was going from 900 megahertz up to it would from 900 megahertz up to 1500 megahertz. So right now my memory's pegged at 1500, probably because I'm recording, right? Um, but so something with MPO and AMD's memory boost algorithm is kind of funky. Um, but thing is, MPO is a Windows feature, so it's like Microsoft should be the one to communicate what is going on with AMD, either that or fix it. But Microsoft, being Microsoft, they kind of just have an issue, and because it probably doesn't really, it did affect some NVIDIA cards, but I think it's been fixed because my XTX is the only card that I ever noticed an issue with when it comes to MPO. When I had 3090, 4080, 4090, I never noticed any issues with MPO, even though at some point apparently it was affecting NVIDIA cards. I think they found fixed it in drivers or something, but AMD hasn't properly done that. Um, so yeah. Anyways, my bad. I know I'm going on a crazy little tangent. So if getting back on track, if the whatever this is, whatever this card's going to be called, the flagship RDNA card, um, this is going to have 3 times the shading units of the 9070 XT, meaning it hypothetically, in terms of just raw throughput, will be 3 times faster, if not more, with GDDR7. And the reason why that's exciting is because if you look up 90, let's go to YouTube. We're going to watch a quick little video. Let's see. Versus 5090. And this is going to be kind of sad because the 5090 is much faster than the XTX. I mean, there's no two ways about it. So, on average, with ray tracing disabled, in most games it's not quite twice as fast. However, okay, obviously that's with ray tracing. Come on now, freaking ridiculous. So it's like 70 to 80% faster than an XTX. Because obviously twice as fast would be 100% faster. So yeah, on average, 70 to 80%, but when you look at it, that is true, but the XTX is able to get a great amount of performance for such a lower price. It's like not even, you know, are you going to be spending 80% more money for a 5090? No, you're going to be spending like fucking 4 times the amount of money. So it's like, you know, that's why I say if you have an XTX or whatever, do not upgrade right now. I mean, these next generations are the ones that are actually looking to be exciting. Unless you come across a crazy deal. Well, if you're on like a 3070 or something or older gen card and you see a like 9070 XT on the used market for like $400 or some crazy deal, obviously scoop it up, right? Because that's you're not, those they do exist. Like you can get deals. Like I got my XTX for $450, and I know a lot of you might be thinking I say that all the time, but well, if you're new to my channel, you haven't heard me say it obviously, but um in a few of my videos, I've said that I've gotten my XTX for $450. So that's just me reiterating that out there are really great, like cream puff sort of deals, that you can snag, but you have to be on the lookout. Like if you really want to get something for a good deal, you do have to be like, and you got to message like a million people too. You got to be and you got to be willing to negotiate. So, at the end of the day, I just want y'all to get a good deal, good experience. Yeah, I couldn't believe it myself. $450. It was like I drove like an hour and a half for the card. I was like, dude, I'll come you this and that, you know. Um, but yeah, so those deals do exist. Regardless, anyways. So and we can also assume that over the XT there will be some IPC improvements. And so from RDNA 3, the XTX to RDNA 5, I expect the IPC improvement to at least be 25%, 25 to 30%. That's well, actually not at least. I would say like 25 to 30% would be pretty solid, right? That just means that per CU on RDNA 5, one CU will just get 30% more performance, at the same clock speed as an XTX. So let's say the XTX CU is running at 3000 megahertz. That means that for RDNA 5, that CU running at 3000 megahertz will just get 30% more performance. 25 to 30% more performance without any other changes. So when you well, obviously there are some overhead factors where this might not be 3 times the performance. It probably won't be, because it's like we saw with the 4090. It was like there was, what was it? I think the 4080 had less than 10,000 CUDA cores. It was like 9,800 or something like that. And um, the 4090 had 16,600 CUDA cores. Um, and so you would expect it to be like more than 50% faster, right? But that wasn't always the case. Like I think the 4090 was like 35% faster. So, which is a significant amount, but it's like it just because you have twice the, or just because you have 50% more CUDA cores or shading units doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be a perfect scaling. Because that also doesn't necessarily mean that every CUDA core, every shading unit is being perfectly utilized 100%. Um, a lot of it depends on the game's engine, how effectively like shaders are processed and stuff like that. So it's like, but you regardless though, like the more shading you, as a general rule of thumb, the more shading units and the more CUDA cores does equal more performance. Like, don't get me wrong, because we've never really had that. That's why the XTX and the 9070 XT. That's why they RDNA 3 and RDNA 4 they stuck with a GDDR6 is because bandwidth and memory speed wasn't the bottleneck when it came to performance. It was strictly shading units or you know it wasn't it would have been a boost, right? It would have gained performance, but it wasn't going to be a big enough boost in performance to warrant the increased cost associated with it. So like if you put GDDR7 on an XTX and made it work, you'd probably gain like 15 to 20% performance because like it is faster. It is, it would be able to um it pretty much would just be able to get information. It's kind of like if you have DDR5 and you tighten the timings, you manually tighten the timings to where it's like you have really fast memory. It's the same kind of idea with that with like GDDR7. And well obviously GDDR7 does have more bandwidth. So it's like it's just much better memory. So you would gain performance, but it wasn't and not to mention GDDR6X was actually developed by NVIDIA with Micron. So I think it was Micron. Well, hold on. Now I'm curious. Who developed GDDR6X? I think it was Micron, if I'm not mistaken. Uh, Micron. Okay, yeah, it was Micron. So yeah, it was a joint venture with Micron and Nvidia. Could AMD have gotten GDDR6X? I don't really know. Let's see. Could AMD have used GDDR6X if they wanted? Because I don't know if Nvidia had it locked down where, oh man, 18 gigabytes per second, which is crazy too, because the XTX actually, I think, had 20 or 21. How fast is the damn? So I guess I've never even thought about this before with the bandwidth, but I guess that'd be like 20 times 24. Oh, no, that's not how that works. Okay. I was thinking bandwidth would be like, okay. How fast is the XTX GDDR6 memory? Because now I'm just curious. Okay, well, I love when I ask a question and then 24 gigabytes. Okay, it doesn't really tell me how fast each individual. Let's do 960 divided by 24. Wonder if that'll tell us anything. I'm just curious. 40. Well, I know it's not 40 gigabytes per second, so I think it must be divided by 2 or something like that because I think it's 20 gigabytes per second. Matter of fact, I'll ask Chat. That's why I love using ChatGPT. It'll give me a straight answer. It'll give me a straight. None of this doohickey. How fast is each. Oh, well, okay. Is the GDDR6 memory on the. Oh, and by the way, y'all, I bought my brother's 3070 Ti, and I wanted to do like some benchmarking to compare it to the XTX. And hooey, let me just tell you, the XTX is so much. I know you're gonna be like, well, duh, it's like it's a generation older and stuff like that, but like it almost makes it makes me like when you have a really fast card for a while, you forget how it feels to have a slow card, and you kind of start taking it for granted. You start taking the speed for granted, and Lord have mercy. Um, I was playing the finals on the 3070 Ti at 4K with ultra performance mode upscaling. I was getting less frames, less FPS than I get with my XTX no upscaling uh, at high settings. Oh, did I mention the 3070 Ti was running at medium settings performance mode at upscaling, which is just crazy to me. Like how the XTX is like such a faster card that it's yeah, it's like when I'm playing games, I'm like, I can't believe this is slower than a 4090. And I had a 4090. I had a 4090 for like, 4 months. So it's like going from a like it kind of gives you the perspective of somebody that was running like a 3060 and then they upgrade to like even like a 9070 XT. It's like the difference in performance, that's like the damn eureka moment or something. But anyways, just wanted to mention that because yeah, 20 gigabytes per second. Okay, so I guess the bandwidth is just divided by two. Um, yeah, I've never done that calculation before where bandwidth is just like 20. Oh, wait, what? Okay, 20 times 24 equals times 2 equals so 960. Okay, I don't. Why is it multiplied by 2? Why is it multiplied by 2? Is it because like I don't know. Y'all are probably calling me an idiot right now. Let's see. Let me ask ChatGPT. Look at how useful this is. Let's see. Why is the bandwidth multiplied by 2? Here, let's see. 20 times, oh shit, 24 equals 480. Yeah. 480 times 2 equals 960. I'm just curious. You know what I'm saying? Because I've never even really sat down to think about it. Um, like what causes that times 2 multiplication? It must be dual. What's it called? I want to say it's what's it called with DDR5? I can't remember. If only ChatGPT would answer my question. Okay. Why is bandwidth multiplied by 2? 20 times 24 equals 480 times 2 equals 960. Okay, let's see. Okay. Double data. That's what. Okay. I've heard about that before. I've heard about it. Data is sent twice per clock cycle. Okay. 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 That makes sense. That makes sense. And I guess it's probably not perfectly efficient, which is why you realistically end up with 870 gigabytes. You get like a damn 100 gigabyte per second uh penalty or whatever. But anyways, my bad. I keep going on off on tangents. So how far are we in? Okay, 30 minutes. Lord have mercy. What's wrong with me? um. Anyways, we got 12 CUs, so that would be obviously 24 And then the 9060 XT CU count 32. Okay, so well then again, I guess this is the entry tier. I guess this might be the 9060 XT competitor. I don't know because okay, 32. So we have 24. I would assume this would be like 9060 XT levels of performance. That's what this is kind of giving me right now is that this is going to be the entry tier is probably going to be very cheap and or significant, cheaper than the 9060 XT and it's probably going to perform about the same. Let's see. And then 9070 CU count. 56 compute units. Okay, and so we're looking at 48. So this is probably going to be faster than a. Yeah, this is probably going to be faster than a 9070 XT. Or right at it. This is probably going to be right either. Let me think. 9070 might be in between. Well, there's only a 10% gap between the 9070 and the 9070 XT. So it kind of depends on how much GDDR7 improves performance. But I would say this is probably going to fall around the 9070 to 9070 XT sort of performance. Maybe a little bit slower. But that would be good. That's great just because this is low tier. Like this is probably like the 300 well, this is probably like the 400 to $450 range, I would say. This is hopefully gonna be no more than like 250 to 300. Well, 250 is probably no, come on now. 250, 300. Let's come on, but 400 to 450. This mid tier, that's gonna be probably between a XTX and or between a 9070 XT slash XTX and a 4090. That's what I would think. So I would say faster than probably a little bit faster than a 5080. If not faster than 5080, on par with the 5080. This monster, if this is true with the 12,000 shading units, or 12,000 cores, this is gonna be faster than this is gonna be like 6090 levels of performance, just right out the gate. Like there's no, yeah, no, because the XTX or the 5090 is like 70 to 80% faster than the XTX, and you're talking about a card that is at least on paper, um would that be the specs are 200% greater. So here, let's go over here. We got 6144 times 200%. Yeah. So you're looking at a card that has 200% higher specs just on paper. Now, I'm not saying it'll scale perfectly like that, or it'll scale a lot better than we think, maybe because of the GDDR7 and AMD's lower CPU overhead. So it's like, we'll see. But on paper, it is 200% faster. Spec for spec versus a 7800 XTX plus IPC up. Like this is gonna beat or be equal to a 6090. Yeah, I mean, there's just no two ways about it with that one, man. Like I'm not gonna lie, it'll probably be a really expensive card, but I think AMD will probably price this where it's um it's not as expensive as we might think, and that's just to like win the hearts of enthusiasts, right? Because they're gonna have a freaking crazy fast card for maybe 1500, and in today's market, I think 1500 is fair for a card that is on par with a 6090. Um, Kind of sad to say because but really, I mean, this is gonna be this is gonna be like if Nvidia is gonna probably be is probably a little worried. Um, yeah, because this is, I mean, definitely gonna be faster than 5090. That there's no question. There's no question about that. I'm sorry, but that 200%, you're just not going to get around. It's not only going to be 80% faster than XTX. Like let's just be let's just be some Debbie Downers here and say it's only 150% faster. That's still percentages are weird because I know that's I don't know if you can just straight add it on, but that in the way that my head works, the 5090 is 80%, 80% faster. So you have to do 160 minus, let's just say 80, right? That's still 80% faster than a 5080. But I don't think it works like that. But I mean, sorry, not an 80, 5090. So yeah, you're looking at a card that is a lot faster than a 5090. Um, and that's on the low end too. Like if it scales anywhere near that 200%, it's like it's gonna be faster than a 6090. First, like there's no question in my mind. But it just depends. I don't know. It just depends. Obviously, everything I say is just my own opinion and what I think, but I think generally speaking, definitely on par with a 6090. This right here is going to be 5080 to I would say like I don't know, maybe 4090 performance, 4090 levels of performance. Maybe a little bit fat. I don't But that 5120 cores, it's like NGD, I would say like 4090 levels of performance with 80 CUs. Because the 9070 XT is on par with the XTX. So yeah, probably around 4090 levels of performance. Um, Maybe even faster. I don't know. I don't know. 4090 to 5090, maybe like 10% faster than a 5090. Or I mean 4090. Um, either that or on par with a 4090. We'll have to wait and see. Low tier, like I said, this will be around 9070 XT to 9070 for a cheaper is what I would think. Based on the specs, the 48 CUs. Um, and then entry tier, this is probably going to be, what was it, 9060 XT levels of performance for cheaper. Maybe a little bit maybe a little bit faster, but we'll just have to wait and see. But anyways, I know I freaking had this video go on crazy long. Hopefully I'm correct. That would be crazy if I mean, you can kind of extrapolate what's going to happen based off, if these are work group processors and not actual CUs, which would explain why it says 96 CUs but 12,288 cores. So now, if that's true, that maybe they're just saying CUs are now 2 cores. But I don't know. I don't know. Anyways, y'all, I will see you in the next video. Hopefully you enjoyed. See ya.